Good morning, everyone. The prelude today is number 39. What wondrous love is this? 39. What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this, that led the Lord of bliss to bear the dreadful curse for my soul, for my soul, to bear the dreadful curse for my soul. To God and to the Lamb I will sing, I will sing. To God and to the Lamb I will sing. To God and to the Lamb, who is the great I am. As millions join the theme, I will sing, I will sing. As millions join the theme, I will sing. And when from death I'm free, I'll sing on, I'll sing on. And when from death I'm free, I'll sing on. And when from death I'm free, I'll glad and joyful be. And through eternity, I'll sing on, I'll sing on. And through eternity, I'll sing on.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning. It's great to have you here. Today we're blessed to have Cheri Lyon preaching the message, and I am blessed to be able to be here for the first time since she's been invited, so I'm very excited to hear what she has to say. Are there any announcements today? No? Okay. So I'm going to start with our chime. If you could all get a comfortable seat and take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out. And we're going to breathe in all the love that is available to us in this room and outside of this room. And breathe out all that we wish to do with that love everywhere we go. Breathe in, breathe out. And the opening prayer today is from a book by Macrina Whitaker, Seasons of the Heart. And this is called Prayer to a Winter God. Winter God, God of hidden face, you are not always spring, but your unconditional love has touched my thawing heart and made it warm again I am not always present to you either. Yet never have I returned to you and found you not there. O God of unconditional love, it is an iced-in message you are asking me to listen for. You are not always spring. And today we have Virginia, who's going to be bringing us the reading from the Gospel of John.
The scripture reading today is from the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 1 through 4 and 14. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth.
Do you want to sing, or we want to just go
Right into it.
right into it?
Oh, we didn't do the candle lighting. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Everyone's looking around and I'm like, fine, everything's fine. So we will have a candle lighting as we always do today. Thank you for being so forgiving. We're going to sing the servant song, number 22, which always reminds me of Pam, actually. The servant song while we light the candles. And here, when we come to light candles, oh, these are big, long ones. Take a candle, and we think of a prayer in our hearts. We think of someone we love that is having a hard time. Like me, lighting this candle. We think of those things in the world that trouble us. We think of something, and we light this candle, and we put it in the bowl of sand so that everyone can see something, a reflection of what is in our hearts. And while we do that, we're going to sing the servant song.
Number 22. Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too. We are pilgrims on a journey. We are travelers on the road. We are here to help each other walk the mile and bear the load. I will hold the Christ light for you in the nighttime of your fear. I will hold my hand out to you, speak the peace you long to hear. I will weep when you are weeping, when you laugh, I'll laugh with you. I will share your joy and sorrow till we we sing to God in heaven, we shall find such harmony. Born of all we've known together, of Christ's love and agony. Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too.
Good morning. It is a joy to be here again. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who's wearing their name tags, because I recognize it, almost everyone, but I appreciate the name tags. I'm Cheri and my husband Ron. We are delighted to be with you again. And I hope we're so delighted that you're glad I'm going to be back in 2 weeks. I told Eileen, is that a little quick? So... And I appreciate that, Michael, to help me figure out where to be. And to stay in one place is part of the challenge. So for those of you up on Zoom, if I start moving out, it's fine if Michael or Eileen kind of move with me, so I don't lose you, and look around. So one of my traditions every year, and for the last probably 10 to 15 years, has been to look at what words did people identify as kind of words of the year for the year that passed. So even though we're now at the end of January, I still think it's plenty of time for us to talk about some of the words that came up around the world in 2023, and what are words that we might want to embody or live into in 2024. So I want to invite everybody, including everybody on Zoom, to be thinking about a word or a phrase that you might be comfortable sharing, that you might want to live into. That might be a word that God's speaking to you, because as Virginia read for us, we begin with the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Not all words that we have in our society today reflect God in quite the way we might think about. So one of the things, and many of you might have heard about this on National Public Radio or seen an article in the paper, there's an American Dialect Society, and they meet annually. This is their 34th year of choosing a word of the year. Now, how they choose theirs is they're looking for new words. I'm going to talk about a variety of words of the year, but for the Dialect Society, they're looking at new words and words that they think either really summarize the year or are likely to become part of our vocabulary going forward. So I had never heard this word. I have to say, I think I'm of the generation that I'm still using old words, because most of the new words come out of a younger generation, and particularly out of conversations on social media. That's where this word comes from. But I think some of us might identify with it. The word is, drum roll please. Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you. In-shitification. I know, everybody's looking at me. What was the word? In-shitification. Now, I realize that most of you are not probably going to just start using this word. But when we hear it, it kind of makes sense to us. Now, here's how it first began. It first was used to describe how digital platforms, remember I said this came from social media and digital platforms, how digital platforms have gotten worse and worse. Now, we've noticed that there's been a lot of changes. Twitter's become X, and there's lots of things going on. And here's what one social media writer wrote. Here is how social media platforms die. First, they're good to their users. Second, the platform abuses their users to make things better for business. Finally, they abuse the business customers to claw back all of the value for themselves, and then they die. And that's called enshittification. So what they went on to say is that term has been picked up by people particularly that use social media on how social media lives have been gradually degrading. And there's been more and more concern with that. However, the American Dialect Society said they like the word because it has all the markings of a successful new word, being one, instantly memorable, and two, adaptable to a variety of situations and contexts. Now, that's where I think we can identify with it, because we can see how some things in our world seem to be going in that direction. Now, on a little lighter note, and I want to share that this conversation and message today is intended to be a little lighter. Last time when I was here, Ron said, "Really, Cheri? That was a bit heavy, don't you think?" And so today is intended, and messages with deep content and that express pain are important, but sometimes we also need to have a little lighter. And so today I want us to think a little about both. What are some other words? Now, 2 dictionaries came up with their words of the years. Now, these dictionaries use their word of the year to be ones that have been most often looked up or that seem to reflect concerns of the society in general. So the Collins Dictionary that many of us might have used in college, their 2023 word was artificial intelligence. That makes sense because there's been lots about artificial intelligence and how it's being used in our world. Kind of goes back to the social platforms. Then Merriam-Webster said that the most looked up word on their social platform was authentic. People really wanting to understand, what does it mean to be authentic? And isn't that a great word for us as people of God? What's it mean to be an authentic follower of Jesus, of the Spirit of love? What's that mean to us? How would we play that out? But I'm coming to my favorite word of the year. This was by the Oxford University Press, and they also work with a new word. Many of you have probably not heard it, but I'm hoping we begin to adopt it. So the word is Rizz, R-I-Z-Z. So some of you have heard it. Now, I see a few people shaking their heads positively, yes. And I want to say that Eileen's a perfect example of having Rizz. Having Rizz, which means charisma. It comes from the middle of the word charisma. But it's intended to be, have you got any Rizz? Have you got a little Rizz? What I really like about it is, though, we're using it as both a noun and a verb. So have you got Rizz? And how it became really popular is that, I'm looking up this gentleman's name, see if I actually wrote it down, but a British actor whose name I didn't capture was asked about his popularity. He says, "I just don't seem to have that Rizz. I just don't have any Rizz." So he was describing popularity, or more than popularity, a sense of engagement, a sense of ebullience, a sense of positive spirit. But what's even better is that as a verb is you can riz someone up. I love that, which means to not hassle them, but instead just the opposite, build them up. It means to build up in spirit, to create a positive energy. And so, oh, just in case you want to know, I found my name. Tom Holland was asked about himself, and he said, he just didn't have any riz. Now, there are definitely days when I don't have any riz, but I'd like to think that all of us have a little riz. Have a little riz. So I'm hoping that's a word, and it's so much better than Oxford University's word of 2022. Now, I want to tell you this just because it's a fun story. So in 2022, you will never guess what the Oxford University Press word of the year was. It was goblin mode. Anybody heard of it? Goblin mode. Okay, so last year I did my word of the year message over at El Poblito. And I said the word of the year was goblin mode. And the very next Sunday, one of the folks at El Poblito comes in with a can of beer called Goblin Mode that he got at the Taos Ski Valley. They were capitalizing on the new word of the year. I thought, I am so far behind the times. I had no idea. He said, as soon as I saw this beer, I had to bring you one. I'm thinking, that's the present for a pastor. Yeah, Goblin Mode beer. Because what it means is greedy, lazy, Slavlin mode. And what it was talking about was as we were coming out of the pandemic in 2022, not everybody wanted to come out. Some people were like, I don't know if I like regular pants anymore. I'm sort of comfy in my flannel PJs. I don't know if I really want to comb my hair. I'm kind of comfy. So it was that sense of you're going goblin mode, ghost mode, goblin mode. But words that I think might be something that we want to think about. And some of you may already be following the Center for Action and Contemplation. And Father Richard Rohr here in New Mexico started it many years ago, and now there's a large collection of people worldwide that work to bring about a broader understanding and thinking about what it means to be people of God. And what does it mean to be people of both contemplation and action? So I was really fascinated. They've recently embraced a pastor by the name of Brian McLaren. Now, Brian McLaren is very interesting because he was a fundamentalist. He came out of a Pentecostal tradition. He's moved a very long ways from that in terms of his preaching and teaching. I also like him because Brian McLaren does not know a metaphor that he does not like. He loves them, and his preaching is all about metaphors, and he loves alliteration. I like alliteration. I think people who preach like it, or any of you who do speaking for a living, because it helps you remember. So that's why there's so much alliteration. But here's the words that the Center for Action and Contemplation, which if you don't get their daily message and devotion, it's free. If you're ever interested in it, Eileen or I could send it out to you, the link, because it's a free daily devotion. And their theme, the words they want to live into this year, is radical resilience. Radical resilience. And to think about that from a faith-based perspective, what does that mean? So in short, what they're really talking about is going deeper, paying more attention to the roots of resilience, and to understand that we live in difficult times. And what does it mean to be radically resilient? And he gives an example, the he being Brian McLaren, who lives currently in Florida, of a tree called the gumbo limbo. Isn't that a great name for a tree? The gumbo limbo. And what he talks about is that in a hurricane, palm trees, for example, sway. So they tend to survive, but the gumbo limbo tree survives not by swaying, but by breaking off branches, letting everything go except the essential. And it's considered one that travels well through a storm because it only holds on to what's essential for life. Maybe that's true for us. Maybe we need to be really clear about what's at the core, what's central to life and our and the world's well-being. So I invite you to think about radical resilience. And one more thing from Brian McLaren, because I think this might be an interesting way to think about the year ahead. Do you want to be a thermostat or a thermometer in our world? Do we want to be setting the tone for our families, our communities, our world by the way we live, by the way we speak, by the actions we carry out? Or do we just want to be responding and be a thermometer and reflect the temperature of the society instead of helping to set the tone, to set the temperature? So radical resilience, practicing that with a little riz, is a way for us to be thermostats of creating a warm and loving environment for ourselves and for the whole world. Well, I want to move on to thinking about words for you. And I want us to transition as we think about it with a quote from Madeleine L'Engle. But first, let me ask you, how recently has somebody asked you, do I have your word on that? Or when you ask somebody else, do I have your word? I give you my word? And you knew that you could trust that word absolutely. The sad truth is, in the last decade or maybe more, how many times have we heard people give us their word and then go back on it? We're in the midst of, once again, of another political cycle, another election cycle. And it sometimes seems like words aren't honored. So Madeleine L'Engle wrote, "Small wonder then that when God tells us, 'I give you my word,' few people take God seriously." Our world doesn't always reflect that. And yet that's what God has done. God has given God's very self in the presence of Jesus with us, Emmanuel, God with us. So I want to take just a few moments to think about Jesus's words. Jesus offered words of challenge. Probably one of his most famous is from Matthew 16. "Take up your cross and follow me." What does that mean to us? But I also think Jesus asked more questions than anything. He was often asking the people he was with a question, and they almost always were open-ended questions. And one of my favorite is from Matthew 20, when he's speaking to two blind men who are following the crowd, asking for mercy. And it's a question I think Jesus is asking us today. What do you want me to do for you? He says to them. What do you want me to do for you? What do we want Jesus to do for us? What are we hoping Jesus will do? Do we even have that expectation? Because I think we hear the echo of that question in our lives today. I hope we do. What do we want Jesus to do for us? And then Jesus offered many, many words of comfort. Two of my favorites. One comes from John 10. "I came that you might have life and have it abundantly." You know, back in the Old Testament, we often read, and I recently read something about what are the most commonly looked up scriptures, and it's from out of the Old Testament, out of Isaiah. You know, I have plans for you, and that's for plans for you to prosper. But in the New Testament, Jesus takes that a little bit further and says, I came that you might have life abundantly. And the challenge is, so many of us don't take Jesus at his word and don't live into that. We don't embody life abundant. And then perhaps one of the strongest words of comfort for me that Jesus says is in the very last chapter of Matthew. As he is ascending, we often read it on Ascension Sunday, I will be with you always to the very end of the age. How many people, how many of us gathered here today really believe that if other people asked us, God was standing right beside us, that God is with us, and our lives reflect that? Don't we sometimes kind of live out of desperation, like I'm all alone? So I invite us to think about words, and I'm going to share a few words. And I brought a couple of books just because they're fun to have, and because I want to share them if anybody's ever interested. I want to just say before we talk about our own words that not all words of Jesus are easy. And Amy Jill Levine wrote this book called The Difficult Words of Jesus. Like, what do we do with that word? You know, like, you're not my mother or my father. I came not to heal, but to use the sword. We don't always know what to do with Jesus's words. So I brought this to bring along. I also, just because some of you might have come out of a Roman Catholic tradition and sometimes don't know what to do with it, this man, Gregory Boyle, is a Jesuit priest who's now doing some work also with the Center for Action and Contemplation. And his books are marvelously readable. And I like this one, Barking to the Choir, and The Power of Radical Kinship. He has done most of his work in the barrios of LA. He runs Homeboy Industries. And the power of embodying the word, and what does that mean? So these are just some books to think about. But now, this is all of us together, including everybody on Zoom, so feel free to take yourself off of mute. What word? I want you to think of maybe two words, because I didn't ask Eileen to put this one up, but what word? We're going to go around once and sort of think of what do you want to live into for yourself? And then be thinking about what word or phrase do you want to live into as a congregation, as a community of faith? I like this word. I get Christian Century, it's a magazine of progressive readers, and many congregations are no longer calling themselves congregations. It's an old word I mentioned. Now we're collectives of spirituality. I kind of like it. But I also love the word congregation, having grown up in congregations and been nurtured by congregations. So I want you to think about what word you want to encourage or consider to think about as this community of God. But the first is, anybody wanting to share or willing to share what word they want to live into in this year? And it's okay. Deborah and I were talking about this earlier. If your word is the same as everybody else's word or someone else's word, because that just says there's a sense of it, there's a feel of it in the air. Words? Anybody with words? Yes.
Well, I've been thinking about this, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
So my word is joy.
Joy. That's a great, all words are good words. That's a great word. Thank you, Charlotte. Others? Anybody with a word?
How about morphine? Morphine.
Oh, morphine. Changing, like changing. Like morphine.
Or did you mean the painkiller?
Or the painkiller. No, maybe not the painkiller by the laugh there. Okay, morphine. Yeah, I like that word. That's cool. And others?
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Yes, gratitude.
Grace.
Kindness, and what else did we hear up here?
Grace.
Grace.
Yes.
Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Yes, great.
Connection.
Connection. Ah, that's one that kind of bridges to perhaps as a congregation as well, right? That's an individual word, but is perhaps a congregational word. Others?
Positivity.
Positivity.
Compassion.
Compassion.
Sovereignty.
Sovereignty. Oh, great words.
Mine is light.
Light. Light. Anybody else with a word that they want to share? Or just to think about the others words that have been lifted up. Because sometimes when I hear a word, I think, ooh, now that's a word I might want to explore. That's a word I might want to explore. So what words as a congregation, as a community, would you like to encourage as a body to live into?
Belonging.
Belonging.
Unfrozen.
Unfrozen. Unfrozen.
Permanence.
Oh, permanence.
Trust.
Trust.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Forgiveness. I encourage you as we collectively and as you individually and as a community go forward, that maybe you explore these words a little bit, to unpack them, to talk a little bit more about what it might look like to live with trust, to belong, to have permanence. How would that be expressed? How would that be embodied? And as you think about the words that you named for yourself, how would you embody those? What would that look like lived out? So I want to share, and I've shared this woman's work before, Kate Bowler, from a series of meditations and blessings called The Lives We Actually Have. I want to share just a little bit, and this one she wrote for a little boost in the morning. Today is new, O God. The light is gathering and spilling onto everything. The sleepy and the sleeping, the trees brushing the window, even the unwashed dishes know it's time. What a gift, unopened. Lord, you know the obstacle course ahead, the intractability of most of our problems, the irritations we will need to smile through, the forgetfulness that will undo our best efforts, and the fights I will need to pick because someone really should. But bring us back to this moment, God, the gratitude that rises up within me, lifts my eyes and settles my soul. Resurrection has happened again today. You made the sun rise and brought love to the world already in the shape of a cross. The hardest work is already done. The work that remains is simply more of it. More love, more trust, more faith in the unseen pleasure you take, just gazing at us sitting here. We look ahead at days we can't control, but will be somehow already yours. My prayer is that we all live with a little Riz as we trust God's word to carry us through a year of living into the words that we want to embody and practicing a little radical resilience. Amen.
Amen.